When you stop reacting, something very subtle yet deeply psychological happens. You interrupt her emotional rhythm. You see, human connections thrive on patterns. The way you respond, the tone you use, the timing of your messages, all of it forms a rhythm she grows comfortable with. Whether she admits it or not, she begins to anticipate your reactions. It gives her a sense of emotional security, even control, but the moment you go quiet, that rhythm breaks, and when the pattern breaks, the mind starts to panic. She begins to replay old conversations in her head, looking for clues. She analyzes your last words, your tone, your behavior. It's not about missing you immediately, it's about trying to restore the emotional equilibrium that your silence disturbed. Because the human mind craves certainty, when you stop providing emotional feedback, she's left in an uncomfortable space, one that forces reflection. In that quiet space, she starts to wonder, did I go too far? Did I say something wrong? What changed? And that's where the real shift begins. Silence, in this sense, becomes an emotional mirror. It reflects everything she tried to overlook when your attention was easy, when your emotions were predictable. This isn't about manipulation, it's about balance. Your silence teaches what your words never could. It introduces accountability. It reminds her that your energy, your reactions, your presence, they were never guaranteed, they were given, and what's given can be taken away. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause, let your silence speak, because the mind listens differently when words are no longer available, and sometimes that's when it finally understands. Silence isn't just the absence of words, it's the absence of emotional access. When you go quiet, you're not merely withholding communication, you're pulling back the energy she once relied on. Most people underestimate how deeply our presence affects others. It's not the words that keep someone connected, it's the emotional exchange behind them, the validation, the attention, the reassurance. When that flow stops, she feels it immediately, not because she's lost you physically, but because she's lost the emotional influence she once had over you. This is where silence becomes powerful. It silently declares, you no longer have that hold on me. And that realization is unsettling. The human ego feeds on emotional responses, whether love, anger, or even frustration. As long as you react, she knows she still matters. But when you detach emotionally, when your silence becomes steady and unshakable, it sends a very different message. It tells her that your peace is no longer negotiable. What's fascinating is that this withdrawal doesn't just affect her, it transforms you. When you stop giving your energy to situations that drain you, you begin to see things clearly. Emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the point where you stop trying to prove your worth and start recognizing it. And here's the truth, emotional silence will always reveal who values your presence and who valued your attention. Because when you stop feeding the connection, only authenticity remains. So, when you decide to go quiet, don't see it as retreat. See it as self-respect in motion. You're not abandoning communication, you're elevating it. You're saying, without a single word, that peace is more powerful than persuasion, and that's a statement no one can ignore. Mystery has always been one of the most powerful psychological triggers in human attraction. The moment you become unpredictable, the dynamic changes completely. When you go quiet, you remove the certainty she once had about you, and that uncertainty becomes magnetic. It's not about playing games, it's about shifting from being emotionally transparent to being intriguing again. The truth is, people lose appreciation for what they fully understand. Predictability breeds comfort, and comfort slowly turns into complacency. But mystery awakens curiosity. When you stop explaining every feeling, every thought, every decision, you force her to wonder. Suddenly, she starts noticing the details. She once ignored: the tone of your silence, the calm in your presence, the strength in your restraint. She starts questioning what's going on in his mind. That question is powerful because it places you back in the position of psychological influence. You're no longer the one seeking answers, you've become the question. And that's what most people don't realize. Curiosity creates emotional investment. The more she wonders, the more she feels. That's how attraction is reignited, not through words or persuasion, but through the quiet tension of not knowing. Your silence, then, isn't emptiness, it's presence. It's a reminder that not everything needs to be revealed, not every emotion needs to be explained. Sometimes the most attractive thing you can offer is uncertainty, not to manipulate, but to inspire respect for your emotional boundaries. So, the next time you feel pressured to be understood, choose mystery. Because curiosity pulls people closer, and silence, when mastered, becomes the art of making them want to understand what they can no longer predict. Power isn't found in how loudly you speak, it's found in how calmly you can remain silent. Every time you over-explain, defend yourself, or try to convince someone of your worth, you hand over a piece of your power. Because the moment you start needing to be understood, you place your peace in someone else's hands. Silence changes that dynamic completely. It says without words, I don't need your validation to feel secure. And that is where true control begins, not over others, but over yourself. When you choose silence, you're not withdrawing from the conversation, you're reclaiming your center. You're reminding yourself that your emotions belong to you, not to the reactions or opinions of others. That shift is what separates emotional dependency from emotional mastery. You stop being the responder and you become the observer. And in that stillness, you begin to see who genuinely respects you and who only stays because you keep explaining yourself. The most powerful people are not those who speak the most. They're the ones who can walk away without chaos. Silence communicates composure, and composure is magnetic. It shows strength, confidence, and emotional intelligence. It's not indifference, it's discipline. You're showing that you can feel deeply yet still choose peace over impulse. So the next time you feel the urge to react, pause. Don't rush to prove a point or fight for acknowledgement. Let silence carry your message, because real power doesn't demand attention, it commands it. And when your silence is grounded in self-respect, it doesn't push people away. It draws the right ones closer while letting the rest quietly fall away. Silence has a strange way of turning the tables. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop arguing for your intentions or defending your actions, something shifts. The focus moves from your behavior to hers. In that quiet space, she's left alone with her own thoughts, and that's where real accountability begins. Because silence doesn't allow for distraction. It forces reflection. It's in that stillness that she begins to question what really happened, what she contributed, and how she might have taken you for granted. You see, when you constantly try to fix things with words, you unintentionally protect others from facing themselves. But when you go quiet, you remove that safety net. She's left with the weight of her own actions, the echoes of what was said, and the absence of your energy. That's when realization starts to set in, not because you told her what she did wrong, but because she finally feels it. And this is why silence is so powerful, it doesn't trigger defense mechanisms. Words can be debated, argued, denied, but silence leaves no room for debate. It lingers, it makes her think, it invites introspection rather than confrontation. This isn't about punishing someone or playing emotional chess. It's about choosing growth over chaos. Your silence becomes her teacher. It creates the conditions for understanding that no argument ever could. So instead of rushing to explain, let the quiet do the work. Because reflection grows in spaces where noise is absent. And sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is step back and allow your absence to communicate what your presence no longer can. Silence is the ultimate emotional test. It doesn't just reveal who they are, it reveals who you've become, because anyone can talk, defend, or react. but to stay quiet, to hold your ground, to remain calm when your ego is begging you to respond, that requires emotional maturity. Silence tests your strength in ways words never could. It asks, can you stay centered even when everything in you wants to prove a point? That's not weakness, that's mastery. And here's what most people miss. When you go silent, the right ones will feel your absence and step forward, while the wrong ones will drift away, and both outcomes are forms of clarity. You no longer have to chase, explain, or perform. The truth reveals itself through behavior, not conversation. The one who values you will sense your silence as distance and will seek reconnection. The one who doesn't won't notice at all. Either way, you see the truth without ever asking for it. In a world obsessed with noise, silence is unsettling. People mistake it for indifference, but it's actually awareness. It's a refusal to participate in emotional chaos. It's a boundary that says, my peace is not up for negotiation. And once you reach that place, you stop reacting from insecurity and start responding from strength. So remember, silence is not about retreating, it's about revealing. It shows who's real, who's temporary, and who was only there for the attention you provided. Use it wisely, because the moment you can be silent and still mean something, that's when you've won the battle most people never realize they're fighting. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's evolution. And the world always feels the shift when you finally rise above the noise.